Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's I.D.R here and welcome back to my new video on this channel, Alhamdulillah. Today I want to talk about a really important topic that concerns every human being, which is the purpose of life, because the understanding of what life is defines the purpose of living it. So today, bi'idhnillah, I'm going to try to explain what is the purpose of life concerning the vision of Islam. As I said before, the understanding of what life is defines our purpose of living because people can never live their life truly without comprehending why they were born and the purpose they have on earth. As we know, our life and an animal's life is really different because while animals appear to survive day to day without concern about their existence, we as humans, our life is precious and has a meaning. Man tries to understand the universe he lives in, and all human beings appear to have a similar concern for survival. Religious groups, philosophers, and scientists have discussed the question concerning the meaning of life throughout history. Each of these groups tends to have their own understanding of what life is about. Additionally to that, it is very clear that scientific and religious understanding of the meaning of life are very distinct, and some of the interpretation tend to contrast between each other. All the views regarding life are concerned with a similar fundamental aspect, understanding the reason for existence. Science, for example, attempts to understand the origin and the nature of the universe in a bit to comprehend the reason of living. On the other hand, Christianity acknowledges that life can only be understood by comprehending the relationship between the human being and God and understand his guidelines on how life should be lived. But the aim of the court video is to investigate the meaning of life according to the Islamic faith. So I will also provide an understanding of the fundamental principles that guide Islam. The meaning of life is explained through the religious, philosophical, and scientific point of view, and these views tend to explain the reasons and purposes of existence. Moreover, the answers to the meaning of life has been subjected to varying cultural and ideological perspective. Many cultures around the world tend to have their own distinct understanding of what life is. So it is impossible to have a single definition of what life is. Happiness, for example, has been one of the major focuses in understanding the value of life to human beings. In fact, various researchers have in the past attempted to analyze life through comprehending the notion of being happy. Science focuses on morality as a critical aspect of living, and the humanistic perspective of life looks at humanity and the reason for existence. And this view also acknowledges that moral values are based on experiences in life and the nature of human beings. And there are many approaches to understanding the value and the reasons for living. However, it is really interesting today the fact that people tend to turn to religion to realize the real meaning of life. So basically, the religious perspective understands the meaning of life through the connection that an individual has with God. Of course, this is the opposite of the humanistic and philosophical perspective that only focuses on daily activities of human beings, and religion just pays regard to a supernatural being that brought human beings into the world. But of course, we have to remember that human life would not have a meaning if it lacked a purpose for living. In this regard, human beings should not just live in the mere fact that they were born, but they should live based on their purposes on this earth, on in this world, and they have to understand the sanctity of life. So the meaning of life can only be understood when human beings comprehend their origins and the reasons why they were put on earth. So, the meaning of life in Islam can only be understood by following the fundamental principles that guide us followers. The five pillars act as a guide to life in the Islamic religion, and they are the Shahada, the Salat, Zakat, Sawm, and Hajj. The Shahada is the testimony of faith, and it recognizes Allah as the only one true God. The testimony of faith also acknowledges the absence of any other true God besides Allah. In this regard, us Muslims should not worship any other God but Allah, who is the giver of life, and the Shahada is the most fundamental principle in Islam. Indeed, by the Shahada, you become Muslim. The Salat is the Muslim prayer that is performed in daily basis. It should be performed at least for 5 minutes and act as a link between an individual and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And us followers of Islam believe in speaking to God directly through the Salat. It also promotes peace and inner happiness in our lives. The third pillar is Zakat, which recognize the importance to help the needy people in society. The Islamic faith acknowledges that all things belongs to Allah. Moreover, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trusts an individual with his wealth, and all members of the community should share it between each other. Therefore, the zakat requires us to give a portion of our wealth to the needy in the community. The fourth pillar is Sawm, which means fasting. The fasting period occurs during the month of Ramadan, and during this period, we have to fast from morning to evening, so from Fajr to Maghrib, and we abstain from any sexual interactions, food, or drinks. And the Sawm is a period where our souls are just purified, and it tests our ability to just live off the comforts of this world. The last pillar is Hajj, and it is annual and requires us Muslim to go to Hajj, so to go to Mecca at least once in our life. Physically and financially, followers undertake this pilgrimage. Moreover, we are required to wear similar clothes to stand equal in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, the meaning of life in Islam is grounded by the relationship between the individual and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the entire life of us Muslims is spent strengthening our relationship with Allah. Additionally, human beings are supposed to submit to Allah in accordance with their intellect and will, following in the steps of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshipping Him gives the meaning of life in Islam. The Quran acts as a guide through which the followers understand Allah's expectations regarding the life. Allah is the owner of life, and hence the meaning of life is only understood in following the Quran and other fundamental principles of the religion. Islamic faith views life as pure, so this is also an indication of the sanctity of life as defined in the Holy Quran too. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regards the life of human beings as important and precious, and He created the whole universe. So we can only understand the meaning of life by having faith in His teachings. The Noble Quran is also a determiner of how life should be in Islam, and our holy book requires us to do good in this life so we are rewarded in the afterlife. The teachings of Islam dictate that all our actions in life should be done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and in accordance with the fundamental principles of Islam. Additionally, the Quran put a lot of emphasis about the life after death. The Prophet ﷺ also followed life after that aspects outlined in the Quran. So we believe that life should be lived in such a manner that one is remembered after he or she dies, because in the absence of life after death, life would be meaningless and unjust. isn't it? So basically, there's this interconnection between actions and faith. Quran calls for a fearful life, which means that without the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, man can easily fall into sin. Just like Christianity, we also, as Muslims, believe in the day of judgment when man will be ultimately judged for his actions on this earth. Despite the Quran stating that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just and merciful, He has to make man accountable on all his actions on earth. So we really have to believe sincerely that life after death is our sole purpose of living. Furthermore, believing in life after death ensures that we live a well balanced and moral life on earth. So, since we all as human beings will eventually die, the meaning of life is based on the longing to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all the human beings will pass through it. This is why the religion demands us to live a righteous life based on the teachings of the Quran. So we as Muslims should live for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and strive to follow His teachings. And that's it. I really hope that this video will be useful to every one of you who has questions about life, who has questions about the meaning of life, especially regarding Islam. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all and your families. Thank you for watching and see you soon in another video, inshallah. Bye.